So I'll go ahead and get us started. Welcome to the Introduction to Welding Instructor Guide webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are recording this webinar to be shared as a resource for the future. And thank you all for joining us. My name is Ashley Montenegro Ramirez, and I am one of the project managers specifically for this grant. And then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Kaylee, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaylee, and I'm the program specialist for this project. Um, our team at the state board and our faculty authors, Doug and David, have been working on this textbook for quite a while now, and we're very excited for you to be able to get a preview of it and hear about their experiences today.
Um, Before we get started, I want to start off with a land acknowledgement. As a step toward honoring truth and achieving healing and reconciliation, we open today by acknowledging the traditional territories of the Squaxin Island tribe of the South Puget Sound. The people of the Squaxin Island tribe lived and prospered along the shores of the southernmost inlets of the Salish Sea for untold centuries. We acknowledge throughout time immemorial the people of the Squaxin Island tribe's strong cultural connection with the water and traditionally known as the people of the water. Today we honor the descendants of the Squaxin Island tribe, the people of the water on which Washington State Board of Community and Technical College office resides. While our colleges are distributed across many First Persons nations, we remain dedicated to opening our time together by honoring those that came before us. We know that such statements only become truly meaningful when coupled with authentic relationships and sustained commitment, and as such, we commit to continued efforts to build our collective understanding and action to foster authentic tribal community connections. How do you support or work in partnership and collaboration with your local tribal communities? I would like to propose that you share in the chat or reflect on your own. One of the things that I do is that I make an effort to shop locally and to support Indigenous vendors. I attend local markets in Thurston County area and Pierce County area, and I try to support my cousins that are from Indigenous ancestry. I have a cousin that makes really amazing beaded earrings. And then I also have a cousin that fishes, and I try to get, so he always is so generous and always shares some of um, his catchings. So I'll just give you guys some time to, reflect on that, paste in the chat. And then next slide, please, Kaylee. Okay. So I'll share a little bit about the project. So it's about Washington Open ProfTech Project. It's a statewide initiative to reduce textbook costs by creating free, high-quality open textbooks for high-demand professional technical programs in Washington's community colleges. Our grant was funded by the U.S. Department of Education. We have two grants. We received one grant in 2021, which is one of the textbooks that we're here for. The webinar is one of them that is a part of the FIPSI 2021 grant. And then we also received a second grant in 2023. So there are other textbooks that are currently being created as we speak. The project brings together faculty, designers, librarians, and editors to ensure content is accessible, compliant, and classroom ready. All our open textbooks are openly licensed. They're free and available for public access and modification. They're enhanced with supplementary materials, quiz banks, and H5P interactive quizzes. I won't share too much about it because I want to make sure that our authors can give you that first look at it. It's very impressive, and as a visual learner, it's one of my favorite aspects of Pressbooks and just in general textbooks. These are professionally edited, ensuring accuracy and high editorial standards. Um, we did our best to to integrate accessibility throughout this entire project. So it's designed to meet accessibility guidelines. Throughout this presentation, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I will save them for the end for question and answers. And at the very end, during the question and answers, I'll also share a link to the welding textbook for you to take a look. I also want to add that if you're not very familiar with OER, we actually have a Canvas course. We are 101. It starts September 8th through the 22nd, and you can register. I just put the link in the chat. Next slide, please, Kaylee. Thank you. And I'll give an overview of today's webinar. So we'll go through about the authors, goals, target audience and courses, what sets this textbook apart, instructional features to leverage, sample lesson plans, tours of the chapter in the textbook, and then challenges you might face along the way in this welding instructor guide. Um, and I will hand it over to our amazing welding instructors and presenters. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to hand it over to y'all.
Thank you, Ashley. So the authors here come from all over the state, and so it was a really good mix. And so these are all currently or previous welding faculty members in Washington State. The authors have worked in a lot of different industries. So I saw Heather, you're from Virginia, and so we have a lot of the state's very diverse. So the western side of the state is probably more of what you're used to with like the rainy, the typical rainy and green. But on the eastern side of the state, it's very dry. There's a lot of agriculture and there's many different industries. So we have, a lot of manufacturing and fabrication, and then also structural. But we also have like aviation. So Boeing is out here and all the industries that support that. We do some work for nuclear and other things that are out there. So there's a lot of different things there. And like I said, our instructors are coming from all over the state and have different certifications for different processes as well. Next slide. So this textbook, when we were coming together to decide the different topics, we really wanted to provide a large overview of an introduction to welding. And as we'll go over it, even though the book is large, you can kind of pick different pieces from it to suit your classroom needs or your welding lab needs. And so here we have 6 different parts to the book. And so the first one is to recognize safe and unsafe practices and conditions. So typically in a lot of even the lab classes, going over safety first before students are out there welding is very important. So that's our part 1. And then right after that, describing the welding equipment that they'll be using for both manual and semi-automatic welding. And then equally important are the different shop tools and equipment that are there, because some students may not have the exposure to shop tools and the basic tools that are there. And so we provide that introduction in part 2 as well. From there, after being introduced to the welding equipment, getting more into the fundamentals of what's happening with common manual and semi-automatic processes. In addition to welding, students also need to cut. So kind of that prepping of material as part 4. And then part 5, we're looking at how the welding industry communicates fabrication requirements through standard weld types and positions. So we go over all different kinds of what the different joints are. We look at blueprints. We also talk about inspection methods. And we also talk about codes. And so the nice thing about the codes part is, even though codes can kind of be dry, and when we were writing this book, it's really kind of, when we're talking about different codes, we're also kind of saying, hey, these are the different things that you could weld on, to really give students kind of more of an introduction with through a lot of pictures to, like, whether it's pressure vessels or just you name it, whatever they're going to be welding out at industry, so they can kind of see that and get a better idea. And then part six, describing the characteristics and weldability of commonly used materials and their best practices in the welding industry. So we're talking about more metallurgy and talking about, especially like if we talk about aluminum, with that, the important thing with aluminum is that it doesn't glow red hot. So it's very accessible ideas and things that students may ask, what are the differences between welding uh, a steel versus, aluminum or other specialty metals. Um, and so, yeah, those are the six parts. Next slide. And so this is an introduction to welding. And so it provides a solid foundation for working as a welder and provides an excellent launch pad for continuing education in the field of welding and welding related subjects. So what is this book targeted for? What courses are we targeting it towards? So it's designed for use in the beginning courses of a welding program. So as we go through and we're looking at the different chapters or the lesson plans, you'll see that we're going to describe, how to take apart the equipment or what's in a welding gun or a TIG torch. How do you take that apart? Those are things that are introductory. But maybe, if you have a student that's doing a lot of stick welding or something else, and then they shift over to TIG, even though they have experience with welding, they're being introduced to maybe a new process. And so this book will also be beneficial to them. And it does serve as a solid base for further learning in specific courses and is a great foundation for working in welding shops. The book's goal is to offer an introduction so students can familiarize themselves with key concepts before beginning more complex coursework. Next slide. So what sets this textbook apart? Because there are a lot of textbooks that are out there. The first one that's rather important is that it's the first openly licensed textbook for introduction to welding. So meaning that there's free public access. You could also modify the content to your needs. And so, there's students out there that, maybe they're typically would be waiting for funding to purchase, supplies and materials, and this is available for them right away. The book was developed and reviewed by subject matter experts. So the team of authors that you saw a few slides ago got together to put the book together, and then there was a separate set of folks from across the state, and I think even further subject matter experts that came in to review and provide feedback to us during the writing process. And so these are folks who worked in the industry and taught in the classroom. The combined industry and classroom teaching experience has given them the expertise needed to craft a textbook that not only covers the technical aspects of the welding world, but presents it in a manner that's accessible to students. So the book is over 900 pages, but like I said, we set it up so that you can either use the entire book as is, or you can pull parts out to suit your needs for your classes that you're teaching. So it contains enough information or enough content to serve as a primary or sole textbook for most of the students' educational welding experience. But again, it's modular. And Doug will talk about later, like how to kind of pull the different pieces, the modular pieces into Canvas in his course. There's also learning objectives that are included in each chapter, and those can be adapted for your needs as well for your course. There's review questions that are included in each chapter, and again, those can be adapted as well. There's presentation slides and quiz questions that were developed, and those will also be available for you that you can also adapt for your course. Next slide. And so Doug's going to take over from here and talk about features.
Doug, you're muted.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
My,
you.
my apologies. And if I repeat, let me apologize in advance if I repeat myself. I'm used to teaching students and talking to students that typically don't listen the first or second or third or fourth times. So I apologize in advance. So we have a lot of our authors have made their own pictures to illustrate the text. There's images that come right from industry. It's not just little cartoons that a graphic designer has put together for us. We do have some of those, but a lot of the images that are used in the book are from real life. And it matters because a lot of times the diagrams and the drawings people don't connect them with what's really in the field. A line drawing of a stinger looks much different than a stinger that you're going to see on a job, which also looks much different than a stinger that is new in the case. Next slide, please. Okay, instructional features to leverage. You can change the content to match the flow of how you're planning on teaching. You can, if you're working on oxy-fuel this week or this next 2 weeks, you can work on that in the textbook. You can, reorder the textbook to complement whatever you're doing in lab. You can also present the textbook material in chunks, basically following the flow of the textbook, or you can change it according to workload. I mean, for instance, I think chapter 5 is a pretty large chapter. You might want to split up the chapters over multiple weeks instead of just 1 week or however so the book is very flexible. It has interactive questions, which are called the H5P. Don't ask me why, but it has interactive questions that are embedded in the textbook. We have photographs, like I said, that were taken by the authors, and we have a clear structure for every chapter. Every chapter begins with the objectives, the learning objectives, the learning goals. We have glossary. We have key terms and definitions with glossary embedded in it. And at the end of each chapter, we have review questions to help students understand whether or not they got everything from the chapter that they need to have. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the book we have some what are called callouts. They're not really part of the they are aligned with the topics, but they're not really part of the teaching text. For instance, we have an essay by one of the welders that I've worked with in instruction, April Finkbonner, and she's an iron worker from Local 86, works in the shipyards as well, it's apprenticeship instructor. And she wrote an essay about how she ended up getting into the welding industry, what piqued her interest, and how it has been as a career for her. And that's an essay to help students get an idea of what it's like to be in the industry and what a career can do for them personally. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm about to take you into the actual textbook itself. We're going to look at chapter 1. Chapter 1 introduces the reader to how the use of metals has impacted history, the history of mankind, and how it continues to impact modern society, and how welders are very important people in our society. If it wasn't for us welders, we'd be living in the Stone Age, literally. So I'm going to start sharing my screen right here. Share. And hopefully you can see this. So this is, when you go to the textbook, this is what you're going to find. And you're going to want to click on Read Book. And this is about the project. This is kind of the prelude stuff. So if you click here, you've got contents, and you can expand these, and you can see the structure of the chapter. It's subdivided into, as David mentioned, little subparts or groups or topics. So let's go to the first one, click on that. And it has a very brief history of welding. All of these illustrations have an alt text, so that if you are using a screen reader, if you're If you have difficulty reading, or if you are visually impaired and you have a screen reader, all of these images have an alt text that describe it audibly to the person going through the book. We have glossary words are highlighted here, and you can click on them and the glossary word comes up. So you've got the definition. Welding is the bonding of two objects of the same or similar materials, usually metal, through heat or force. This bond is at the molecular level and may include added filler material. So we've got embedded glossary words. Students that have previewed this in my office really like that. We have questions, review questions embedded in the text, the HP5 thing. People who had the use of what had an advantage over those that didn't and were more likely to survive and prosper. This is a short answer. I'll type in rocks. Okay, people who had the use of rocks. And we'll check that answer. Uh-oh, I didn't answer it correctly. It was answered incorrectly. It's not quite right. Remember, this material replaced wood, bone, stone, was more durable, holds a sharp edge. Try again with this in mind. Now that I remember writing this chapter, I'm going to retry the question and put the right answer in there, the correct answer. Metals. People who had the use of metals, which is right out of the text, had an advantage over those that didn't and were more likely to survive and prosper. We'll check that. Hey, I get a gold star. And a lot of people are motivated by that, that little bit of dopamine hit that, yes, I've got a gold star. I am a successful person. I can do this. And then, you know, chapter 1 goes on. We talk about forge welding. Again, there's a glossary link right there, another glossary link. Of course, the images all have alt text. They're all attributed. Everything's legal, okay, to my knowledge. Let's see, in sub-Saharan Africa, blacksmiths often worked within villages. True, check. Oh, no, they didn't. So let's show solution. It's false. So we can retry that. Check it. Great job in sub-Saharan Africa. And I wonder how many people actually know that ancient Africa had metal, steel. They forged steel. Pre-Columbian America, and so forth. So let's see. Let's see. Have I call out menus, screener? So I also wanted to point out, which was pointed out to me earlier, that in this table of contents here on the side, on the left-hand side, all of the in-text H5P questions are listed at the back, and you can print them out. A student can print them out, I believe, and use them for review work as they study. So let's see, I think that is everything I wanted to cover in the chapter. Let's see, let me check. Am I missing anything? Clear structure, objectives. Oh, yeah, no. So every introduction, let's go to here. Nope. Introduction to welding, first page. Okay, so we've got the overview. So every chapter begins with objectives. I mentioned this before and I want to show you. Every chapter begins with objectives and key terms, and every chapter, let me go back to the table of contents so I'm not skipping through a whole bunch of pages. Every chapter begins with the objectives, key terms, has the embedded content, and it ends with a set of a summary and review questions. So students can check their comprehension of the chapter. So if they get to a review question, they don't know what the review question is, it prompts them, or it should prompt them, to reread and restudy that section where they missed the question. So, okay, I think that is that. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share and back to slideshow. Okay. All right, back to you, Dave.
Thanks. And so here I'll talk about a sample lesson plan for what would be a theoretical week 5. So Doug and I talked about how we would split something like this up, and we had discussed about like an 8-week, 10-week kind of way to split out the course. And so this is what a week 5 would look like if you were working through the book. But like we said, it's flexible. So if you're teaching a course on flux core welding, then you'd probably do the safety, do some of the introductory stuff, and then hop right into flux core to get them up and running. And so what I'll do is I'll share my screen. Um, let's Okay. So can everyone see my screen now? Okay. So the way this was split up was over 2 days. So kind of thinking of there's different lengths of classes. And so when Doug and I spoke about how like uh, we would do things at Everett Community College is very different than the way he does things, and the way other programs throughout the state would do things. So typically at Everett Community College, when we have like a 4 to 5 hour lab class, we start off with like a 20-minute lecture at the beginning. So the first week we're going over safety. And then the second week, we're going over the different processes depending on, what the students are taking. And so our classes, we've recently shifted. Before we had, like flux core, MIG, TIG, stick, and even oxy fuel welding all in the same class, and we've kind of shifted to kind of split those out. But here, for example, in this week, because flux core and MIG are very similar, I put those on the first day, and then the TIG would be later on. And so here I have the learning objectives. And so Doug had showed what the learning objectives were in each one of in his chapter 1. And so this is just kind of copying those out for chapters 9, 10, and 11. And I'll just kind of go over chapter 9 real quick, but we're going to go over the uses of flux core, uh, describe the advantages and limitations, identify the equipment, explain the fundamentals of welding techniques, classify electrodes and shielding gases for flux core. And so you're going to have a similar thing for MIG, uses, techniques, modes of transfer, which is different, shielding gases, troubleshooting for MIG, things like that. And then TIG, again, we're going to be identifying the equipment, the uses in industry, we're going to go over TIG specific safety concerns in the chapter, uh, recall settings, techniques, and classifying electrodes and whatnot. So if we're looking at like that day 1, typically we would assign the readings. So for this class, since this is flux core and MIG, so assign the students to read chapters 9 and 10. And so what we would do is kind of do we're going to have an overview of flux core and MIG, and then an overview of the assignments that the students would have. So kind of letting them know that's what we're going to be doing. And so we're going to start off with talking about the uses of flux core, and then also heavy industry. So that's kind of part of the book. We'll talk about advantages and limitations uh, for um, for flux core, and then identify the equipment. And this is kind of what Doug had mentioned earlier, where the shop things look a lot different, and we do include images, so students sometimes when we're starting off, especially when I'm lecturing students or talking to students, if I kind of mention the different processes, like some of them have never been out in the shop yet. And so this kind of gives them, an image of what's out there in the shop. Because if we scroll down, this image here, as Doug was mentioning, this is not what it typically looks like in the shop. I know for our shops, our gas supply is actually outside of the building, and it gets kind of piped in. We do have some equipment that's set up kind of more in like a fabrication area away from our welding booths. So it's kind of good to show, hey, this is what the entire setup looks like. But when you're actually out in the shop, this is what it may look like as well. So just going over the equipment itself, uh, having a classroom activity, so identify the different parts of a welding gun, and actually having these photos here. And as Doug had mentioned, the instructors went through and took photos to go along with the chapters that they were writing. And so here you can see the different parts and pieces of the welding gun. And so this can be used by students as a reference. So if they're taking apart, uh, their welding gun or something, and they have a question, they can kind of refer back to this and look at this. So if they need a particular piece, if later on in the quarter or semester, if a piece wears out, they can kind of go back here and look and see, okay, what's the name of that? Instead of just saying, hey, I need another one of these. Then explaining the fundamentals of the flux core welding techniques. Um, and so after this, what I had was from here, then uh, we would go out to the lab. So we would discuss this in the classroom, kind of go over these different things, and then have the instructor go out with the students in front of the actual equipment and discuss the equipment, show the students the equipment, take apart a welding gun, and then have them do it. So really kind of relating the material out to what's there in the welding lab. Then we also have MIG here. So a classroom activity that you could possibly do are discussing what are the similarities and differences between flux core and MIG. So the differences in the wire, the transfer modes. So flux core being globular-like versus the different modes of MIG, and we have some illustrations of the different transfer modes here. Slag versus no slag, different cleaning needs. Maybe point out the fact that FCAW S is self-shielding, whereas GMAWS is short-circuiting, so that S means something different. Also, the fact that MIG has the ability to weld aluminum, whereas flux core does not. And going over that. The book also has unique shielding gas constituents, even kind of mentions hydrogen. So even though that's a very unique case, I think it's important to kind of bring up um, different things that students may see. So for example, out in the area, in the Everett area, there is an exotic metals company. And so students are, could be exposed to different shielding gases. So this kind of clues them into that. So then if they hear about that at work, they aren't hearing about it for the first time. And so then we have this instructor demonstrations and hands-on practical. And so here's where I was kind of talking about before, like when you go over flux core, okay, so you're talking about it in the classroom, but then kind of get out there and say, okay, here's the machine, here's how you take it apart, here's how you would weld. So again, very introductory. And then after showing that, then have the students do it, have them, take apart the welding gun, uh, and put it back together and then actually do some welds. So here I put down 60 minutes for the classes like Everett would have, which sometimes are, 4 or 5 hours. This could still be like the first, hour or two. And then after that, you'd have the students go off and do different activities. Because, for us, and I'm sure most of you out there, you have students who've never, picked up a tool, hand tool or anything like that, or are being just introduced to welding for the first time. And then you also have students who are coming back from industry to kind of plus up their skills. So people are going to be in different, coming from different skill levels. But I think knowing this information about the different transfer modes, it's a good refresher even for those who are coming back and have some experience. So this is for the first day of the week if you were teaching 2 days in a week. So going over flux core and MIG. And then for the second day, going over TIG. And again, talking to the students about the assignments that they'll be doing. And so this is very similar where we have an image of the TIG torch and all the different pieces to it. And so at every community college, we have a mixture of some of our machines come with TIG torches, and then for the majority of it, students have to purchase this or get this assigned to them. And so they're going to have to take it apart, put it, at the end of the day, put it together at the beginning of the day. And so having this here, and also we would point to YouTube videos where it's someone showing them how to take it apart so they can see it visually, and then also go out and do it themselves. But for this, so we're showing what's there. We're going over different equipment like the torch, the tungsten, the gas and flow meters, filler metals, also talking about different safety concerns. So like the radioactive dust from thoriated tungsten. So basically meaning, if you're out there, sharpening your tungsten, like don't go eat a sandwich without, or to, take a break without washing your hands. Don't put the tungsten in your mouth, that kind of stuff. And then also we talk about hexavalent chromium as well, different safety concerns that occur with TIG. So also talking about uses in industry. So where would you use this? So food processing, casting and repair, aerospace, boilers and refineries. And the other thing that I usually like to point out to students is a lot of times you'll use different welding processes together. And so I've run into plenty of students who are kind of focused on, oh, I'm just going to do flux core, or oh, I'm just going to do stick, and kind of letting them know, hey, you're in school, take this opportunity to learn all the different processes. And especially when I mentioned in class that you could be doing a TIG route followed by stick it or passes and cover passes, a light bulb kind of goes off and they're like, oh, really? And so that they kind of change, the different classes that they may take. Then also a hands-on, so having the instructor go over the torch setup. So having the instructor show students how to do it, and then having the students assemble their torches after watching the instructor, and have the students. Additionally, one great thing is having students because some students are going to pick up on this really quickly, is having them demonstrate for those who are struggling a little bit or still learning. You're helping out those students who are struggling, but also reinforcing the concepts of putting it together for the students who are doing really well. Also emphasizing a clean workspace and a respect for shared tools. With TIG, you have autogenous welding, so demonstrating autogenous welding on a plate while discussing the foot pedal movement to obtain a consistent weld and have students weld in a hands-on practical. So typically, like when we're teaching TIG, like we usually start off with just autogenous welding or just, a bead on a plate, and then the filler metal will come in later. And so I'm sure a lot of you do that as well, because it's just too many movements at once to learn. If you're doing the foot pedal and moving the torch and doing a separate movement with the filler metal. So with all this, we would assign the readings to the students to say, hey, read these chapters. So each chapter, would be provided. Also, you could include like a short essay. So after the student reads these, like which welding process are you most interested in, and what industry and examples of fabrications would you weld? For assessments, so that welding gun or TIG torch disassembly and reassembly, participation, and any kind of reflection that students would do. Then we have instructor notes here to kind of help out, with different kind of a friendly reminder on different topics. So making it clear that welding equipment is dangerous when energized, because we're talking about taking apart the welding gun and TIG torch. So making sure that that's turned off, having the instructor walk through those demonstrations first. And depending on your program, you may or may not want students taking apart additional parts of the equipment other than the torches and guns. Encourage students questions around welding careers early on, because if they have an idea of where they're going to go or where they're going to use this, they'll engage more with it. Emphasize the connection between the textbook content and practical safety. And then again, kind of going back to the textbook, the different images, the different diagrams are available for those visual aids, and then reinforce that PPE is not just about compliance, but also long-term health when welding and cutting. And so I can quickly, for chapter 9, the contents are very similar. And so the book is very easy to digest. We wrote it to make it very accessible and welcoming for students to read it with the pictures and things. And so here there's the different, as Doug pointed out, the different terms that are defined, the different questions, but then also engaging images throughout the book. And we also worked hard getting uh, an illustrator, to put together some really great illustrations of what's actually going on.
David,
So student, yeah.
before you continue, can you click on that image?
Oh, sure.
Like if the student wanted to like look more in depth into an image and see that, they pop up into a big picture.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
And then how? Oh,
You just go back in the tab, or not
oh,
necessarily the tab, but you can close it off and
okay,
go
right
there.
on. And then if you look at the language of the book, again, it's very, even though our topics were kind of getting into, um, the technical, like, this is a profession, we're getting into a lot of technical details. It's written in a way to be very friendly and accessible, to not be intimidating to the students. So kind of writing at, I think like an 8th grade level or something like that. So avoiding the fancy words. And then if there is anything, like denitrifying or something like that, which first time seeing that, that's available. So I could click on that and see what the definition is as well. And then uses in industry. What I did want to get to was, let me get back up there. I wanted to show where the images came from. Yeah, equipment setup. So some of the images I showed in the lesson plan. So there's discussion about that here. And so the students will be able to read about it, the different parts that are there, and it kind of goes in. So here we're saying, power source and whatever, and we're kind of going into more detail down below. So all that's available. And with that, can we go back to the slides, Kaylee?
I'll pull them up right here.
Next slide. So challenges you may face. So students may get discouraged, especially, if they see something like a 900-page book, if you're just giving them a link directly to the book, or if they feel like, hey, this is a lot of information about, the welding machine, to kind of let them know all welders start from zero. And at some point, they all start at zero from some point, but with hands-on time welding and working with the equipment, that they're successful welders now. And so, discuss that successful welding depends, on the industry and goals each student sets for themselves. So some welding is going to require a lot more skills than other welding will. So if you're doing welding like code, like pressure vessels or aerospace welding or whatever, you like, that's going to require a lot more skill than other types of welding that they might be doing. So kind of letting them know that there's different things that they can pursue and kind of work their way through their career. It's also okay. Telling students is also okay if they don't know what they want to do. And so the book kind of emphasized, especially in the code section, it goes through a lot of different codes, but it talks about the different industries that those codes are applied to. So that's something you may want to point the students to. It has a lot of pictures in there so they can kind of see, okay, these are the different structures or different things, fabrications that could be made with those different industries. Then you also may have poor reading habits. So as Doug mentioned, some students may not read the assigned chapters. And so for the chapters 9, 10, and 11, so for the MIG, flux core, and TIG, letting them know ahead of time, read the chapter, because what's described there, you're going to be doing that hands-on assembling and disassembling welding guns and torches as described in the book. So, I'll be showing you how to do that, but it's also in the book, and then you'll be doing that as a hands-on activity. Next slide. And so this is back to Doug.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, so as Dave mentioned earlier, welding programs across the state and even across the nation are all structured differently in how they present their classes, how they enroll people, how they schedule them. So some schools will operate on a cohort model. They will take, just a group of students and they will move that group of students through. They all graduate at the same time. They'll get another group of students. Some operate in a stacked class format where in any one quarter or semester, you'll have students at different levels, some that have been there for one quarter, some that have been there for 2 or 3 or 4. So you've got beginning students and then you've got senior students. Some schools will integrate the didactic or the lecture component with the lab work, like David was mentioning. If you're going to work on flux core and lab, we're going to have a lecture on flux core beforehand. He mentioned that they'll have like a 20 minutes before lab, they'll meet and lecture for 20 minutes right on what they're going to do. Some schools or programs will separate the didactic or the lecture content into a self-contained lecture class, and that's completely separate from the lab class. The students will sign up for it separately. They may even have different groups of students in each one of those classes, separate. And some programs will present that lecture content in an asynchronous online class. That's the case at South Seattle College. We have our lab classes are distinct from our lecture classes. We have lecture classes that are hybrid, where you will meet face-to-face in the classroom and then have some online stuff that you'll turn in, like your homework and so forth. The classes I teach are all asynchronous and 100% online as far as the lecture content stuff, not the lab stuff, but the lecture content. So students will do all their work online. They'll log in, they'll complete their work, submit it and all that. And it's asynchronous. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's see, who is still sharing their screen? Can I share my screen, please? Thank you. Okay, so right there. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I hope you can see this, about how I'm going to use the textbook in my class and how I teach my online class. First of all, I might reorder the chapters. I might not go in sequential order. It's real convenient to assign one chapter per week. Some chapters are larger than other chapters, so I might split them up over a course of 2 weeks. Some chapters are shorter, have less content, might do 2 chapters in 1 week. I'm still working on building my class using this textbook. Now, one thing I do like about the textbook, and I do like the textbook, I had a hand in it. Each section of a chapter has its own reading assignment page. Each section, or in my Canvas class, has its own PowerPoint presentation, and each section has its own video captured lecture. Each section has its own quiz. So on my Canvas, in my Canvas shell, or my online LMS, Learning Management System, I'm using the textbook, and I have each section of the textbook stands alone, and each one has each one of these elements in it, and I'll show you that in a minute. Me personally, I have all my work is due weekly, Tuesday on midnight. I give students 10 days to work on everything. And each chapter is accessible without downloading the entire document, which I really love about this. If your textbook is online and it's a PDF and it's 900 pages, it may crash the browser if you have to download the whole thing. It may crash your computer or freeze your computer if you have to download the whole thing. This book is divided up so that each section or each part of a chapter has its own URL, so you can access it on your phone without crashing your phone, which is awesome. So I organize my Canvas page by chapters and modules, and here's a screenshot of it. We've got a link to it. I like Canvas because it's got a variety of formatting features. I use external links to the textbook. I upload PowerPoint pages. I upload pages for content. I have discussions, quizzes, and so forth. And I use a video capture program. I give my lecture with my PowerPoint. I do a video capture of it, and I post that online. So I'm going to go to my Canvas page right now. And this is, I hope, can you see this? Canvas? Okay, cool. So students go here. This is what they see. On the left-hand navigation, it's really simple. They've got the home page, which is this. They've got a list of assignments, which really I might even take that out because I don't want students just doing the assignments. I want them to go through this, and grades and announcements. So click on this. This is information for orientation. It's going to have a video on, classes in this building at this time, make sure you bring this, do this. Here's, that's orientation stuff. And then next, important documents. I've got the syllabus. I've got a quiz on the syllabus to make sure that you have evidence that the students are aware there's a syllabus and that they agree to follow the syllabus. It's not real important until you're sitting in a court of law, and then it becomes very important. So just saying. And then I have a link to the welding textbook under important documents. I'm going to collapse this. Week 1, introduction to welding, so forth. Week 2, I've jumped to chapter 3 for week 2. And I also have posted on there how much each module is worth towards their final grade. So one thing I like to do is I like to organize my online instruction in a linear sequential manner. I don't have them click a link to go to all the quizzes, and all the quizzes are in one place. I don't have them go to all the assignments are one place, all the announcements are in one place. I have everything very linear. So they start at point A and they go to point Z, A, B, C, D. So chapter 2, we start off with a discussion of the previous week's work as a review. Most students don't like discussion, but sometimes you just got to do what you don't like to do. And it's graded. Click next, and I go right to the textbook. It's embedded in Canvas. Here's the entire section. Like I said, because it's just one URL for that section, you don't end up crashing the computer by having to download the whole book. So they have to read this. After they read it, they take a quiz, and the quiz is question 1. I have read chapter 5, welding machines. True or false? True. Submit. Done. Thank you. Next. So, and I do that. An instructional designer told me that, yeah, students can cheat, they can lie, but typically most of them don't. If you just ask them a simple question, did you do the homework? Yes or no? Usually they'll be pretty honest about it. Most students have a conscience. Not all of them, but most of them do have a conscience. And most of them are in our class because they want to be in there and they want to learn this stuff. It's not a compulsory class. They're there because they want to be. So, and then now we've got the next chapter, and that's right there in Canvas, hosted in Canvas. Click next, and I have a PowerPoint that has been generated. I made this PowerPoint just for that section. And while a PowerPoint online has never done anything for me personally, because it's just basically an outline with little bullet points. Some students like to download this, print it out, and take their notes on it. So this PowerPoint is right from the textbook, and the state is, I did this independently. The state is producing one for your use. I'm doing this for a separate grant that I'm working on for curriculum development for my own college. So next, here is my lecture. Next, please. Please, please. Click it again. Here we go. So this is the same PowerPoint. I'm going to put it on big screen. If you're a fast learner, you can put it on double speed. If you're a slow learner, you can slow it down. And, I'm just going through the tech, through the, so anyway, that's enough of that. So I've taken all the PowerPoints and I'm presenting a lecture. I'm video capturing that lecture. It's the same thing I would have in a face-to-face classroom. I use a program called I want to say it's ScreenPal, and I put it on YouTube. YouTube's not going to go away anytime soon. YouTube will automatically put closed captions in there. And then I put a link to YouTube in Canvas. And I, again, have the students take a quiz. And that quiz is, did you watch the video? And I don't like the new quiz format that Canvas has. That's just me, though. I've watched the video, true. You may want to have a bunch of questions on your video if you choose to do this. Submit, yes, thank you. Return, thank you. Faster, please. Faster would be nice. This is a new computer, believe it or not. I've just got a bazillion tabs open right now. So, and then after you read the chapter, this, and I'm developing this, and then my next link is for chapter 5.2. Same thing, the text, then we've got the PowerPoint, then we've got the video lecture, then we've got the quiz, then we got the next reading assignment, we've got the PowerPoints, we've got the video lecture, we've got the next quiz. Next week, we've got a discussion format that is supposed to review the previous week's work. So that's how I've structured my class. Let's see. Yes, ScreenPal, not Screenplay, ScreenPal, I think. Okay, so that is how I've set up my online class. That's how I use the textbook in the online class. The textbook is very well suited to that, and it's free. It's great for the students. So I'm going to stop my screen share, and if we could go back to the slide presentation, that would be great if we can pick up where that left off. Okay, excellent. Next slide, please. Okay, now I've been teaching online asynchronously since 2017, which is 3 years before the pandemic, when everybody had no choice but to teach online. So I've been trained how to do this. I took classes on how to do it. I've been doing it for a long time. And I've gotten a lot of student feedback through surveys and evaluations, and I've learned some stuff, and some of it's obvious, some of it a lot of people know. So, but I'm just going to go through some things I've learned. Number one, students appreciate consistent structure. So if you're going to teach online, avoid changing the format frequently or requiring them to download and learn new apps. We've all been in webinars and stuff where they say, okay, download this, do this, and half the time is spent trying to learn a new app. Okay, so don't do that to your students. If you do have them learn a new app or something, do it just at the beginning of the quarter and just one and done, okay? Students appreciate a linear structure. Post materials in the order that you expect them to do them in and complete them in, rather than by assignment type or topic. And you want to reduce all unnecessary navigation, make it easy to navigate. which is our next point. Students appreciate an easy to navigate format. Any irrelevant links, get rid of them. Just what they need for the class, okay? Students do appreciate multiple modes of presentation, which is why I have reading. I have the PowerPoint. I have the video lecture. If there are YouTube videos, movies, or video shorts that are relevant to the topic, I'll put them in the Canvas and have a little quiz after it or something. They like having multiple methods or modes that they can learn through. Okay, you've heard the multimodal learning modes or learning preferences, sometimes called your learning styles. Students like having that that way, that multiple means of accessing it. Let's see. Students do not really like discussion assignments for the most part. Very few do. However, sometimes it's too bad. Just got to do it. I have found that students engage only with assignments that are going to be graded. If there's no grade attached, usually they won't even mess with it. So I avoid all this, for further personal enrichment or for more information, click here, or I encourage you to read this. I don't do any of that because as a student myself, I didn't engage in it. Most students don't dig that, which is why I'm right now I'm developing this new online shell using this textbook. I'm scrapping my old one. But basically everything is going to have grades on it. You click on this, you do the work, you get a grade. Next thing you click on this, you do the work, you get a grade. So next slide, please. Okay, I give extra credit, but only for students that are, it's not going to tip the scale unless somebody's like right on the line of passing or failing. Nobody's going to like bomb the class, but dig themselves out through extra credit. Extra credits for students that are overachievers, and it's not going to significantly fix their grade if they're failing horribly. Another thing is due to the use of AI in writing assignments, I no longer assign writing assignments. That's a tongue twister. Each week, I have a review assignment based on the previous week's material, and usually that's in a discussion format. I also give ample time for students to complete assignments. If a teacher opens an assignment on Sunday night and expects it to be handed in on Friday night, that teacher is an evil person. Okay, students have lives, they have classes, they have jobs. I've had that teacher as a student myself. My coworker, she was taking a psychology class or something, and the teacher actually opened an assignment on Wednesday morning and expected it to be completed by Wednesday afternoon. There's no reason for, there's a reason we have online classes. It's for flexibility. Okay. So all my stuff I open up on Friday. I give them 2 weekends to work on it, and it's due the next Tuesday. That way they have plenty of time to contact me if they need help with something. Now, unfortunately, they usually wait till Tuesday afternoon before they start working on it, but that's not my fault. That's their fault. Okay, anything I expect students to do is attach your grade. I already said that. And this is very big. I use students to edit my work. So my previous Canvas course I had for a couple of years, it was pretty well gone through, pretty streamlined, pretty tweaked and perfect. Now I'm redoing my class to incorporate the new OER textbook, and it's going to be rife with mistakes. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be laughable. But I'm going to give students extra credit for finding my mistakes and pointing them out to me. And a lot of students live for finding mistakes in others. So I'm just going to feed that. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to use it to my advantage. So that's things that I've learned. And hopefully some of that will be a help to you if you've not heard some of those things before. So that's all I've got. I appreciate your time, and I'm honored to have been here.
Thank you, Doug and David. I will be sharing the link to the welding textbook. This is the pre-release. I still need to go through it. There's still a quality assurance being done on the Pressbooks textbook to make sure that all the elements are working and they are accessible. Heading structures, images popping up in different screens, vocabulary terms and stuff like that that have definitions. Getting all of those things checked on and making sure that it's all good. So I'm going to paste it right now in the chat so folks that are sticking around can take a look. Okay. Okay. It's in the chat now. So if you want to take a look at our pre-release, you are very lucky to be here with us. You can grab that link and open up the welding textbook. And if you guys have any questions for Doug or David, they are here to answer those, or myself if you have any questions about the Pressbooks platform and just in general migration.
Ashley,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can comment on because I know like as we kind of move through, uh, first the book was written and then it was kind of tested out. There was some feedback for that in terms of uh, students liking the book. I don't know if you could talk about that at any.
Yeah. I can share a little bit about what our report found that there was statistically the students from fall of 2023 had lower grades than 2024 when the welding textbook was integrated. Um, and so that's really cool. And that was something that was even before we had the interactive questions that we just put in um, this last month. So I can only imagine that this textbook is going to be an even better resource for students and tool that students can use to use along the way. And then you mentioned in your webinar that we have 30 question item banks for every single chapter. So that means 3 test question banks for 30 for each chapter. And I think there's like 22 chapters. So that's a lot of questions and a lot of tests. And so what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the Canvas course, put it in Canvas Commons. And what we'll do is that we'll create a form and we will safe keep all of those item banks for instructors to send us, fill out our form every Monday evening. We'll check it and then we'll give access to verified instructors to those item banks. And I keep forgetting what the terminology is. Kaylee, can you help me?
Oh, the file name is
Yeah.
IMSCC file.
So they're IMSCC files, and that was our little workaround to get those implemented into Canvas. Canvas Commons does share materials, but we want to make sure that these are, withholding the standards of academic integrity. And so our PI, Bo Young, she worked her magic like I knew she would, and she found a workaround and we're able to share those with only instructors. So those will be available as well. We're just getting all of that cleaned up and those forms ready to go so instructors can request access to those links. And if anyone has any more questions, please speak up or put them in the chat. If not, then we'll close out the session for the afternoon and I'll give you guys back your time. Thank you, Monte, for joining us, and Mark, and anyone else that might have left a little bit earlier. I'll stop the recording.